I'm Haley Matson with McIntyre Elder Law, and today we're going to talk about wills versus trusts. So, I know you've probably heard a lot about wills, and I know you've probably heard a little bit about trusts, but some people don't know what the difference is between them. So there's a couple differences that are more slight, such as the naming of who's going to run it after you pass. In a will, this is called your executor or your administrator. And in a trust, it's going to be called your trustee. But the difference between these is that in a last will and testament, it only takes effect after you pass away. So you can't add assets to your will. You can list them, but you can't control them out of the will while you're alive. Your executor can't take any steps to move any of those assets or change any of those assets while you're alive. However, in a trust, your trustee, which is sometimes you and sometimes somebody else, whoever the trustee is can move assets around and put them into the trust, or they can take the assets out of the trust. They can also make distributions to beneficiaries if you have a subtrust for, say, a special needs child or something, whereas your executor for your will cannot do that. Some other differences is that your will does have to go through probate. To be the executor, you do need to submit an application to be the executor, and then the will need to be probated. However, with a properly funded trust, the trust and the trustee don't have to go through probate. Those assets can be managed by the trustee, who can distribute them to who they're supposed to go to. With a will, the last difference I want to talk about is that the will doesn't technically need to be funded. You don't need to retitle any accounts or add the will as a beneficiary on any accounts. But with a trust, you do. Once you have the trust set up and you've signed your documents, you'll want to go actually fund the trust. So, change the title of your car to the trust, or change the deed so your house is deeded to the trust. That's not something you have to do with a will, but with a trust, it makes it easier to distribute those assets. If you're interested in setting up your own will or your own trust, you can come see McIntyre Elder Law by coming into one of our offices in Shelby, Hendersonville, or Charlotte, or by calling 1-888-999-6600. You can also schedule an appointment at mcelderlaw.com/scheduling.